Creating from the Heart, the Artistry of Living. I'm Suzy Vance, and I'm here today with Mark Grobner. And we're going to see what his life has been all about. So, are you from around here?
I live in Michigan City. I live in Tryon Farms in Michigan City. But originally, I was born in Chicago and then raised in the south suburbs. So my first 2 years were in Blue Island, Illinois. And then on my second birthday, we moved to Flossmoor.
Okay. So. And over the years, did you come out to the dunes?
Actually, we did. We did, came to the Indiana dunes and also the Warren dunes. So it used to be a bit, being from the south suburbs, it wasn't too bad of a drive, and that was always a big thing to be able to go to the dunes.
Yes.
It was pretty exciting for us to see the dunes and be by the water.
So when you were a kid, did you ever imagine doing whatever it is you're doing today?
No, never. No, never. There was one moment, though, when I was a freshman in high school. Do we look at the camera when we do this?
You can look wherever you want.
But there was one moment where I was doing volunteer work in high school at Oak Forest Hospital in Oak Forest, Illinois. And, every Monday night we'd go and we'd bring people, in their wheelchairs, to get them from the room, bring them down for the movie. That was their movie night. So bring them down to the movie, and then we'd kind of wait, and when the movie's over, we'd bring them back to their room. And but I remember one time I was going to get someone, and then there was multiple people in this big room, and another gentleman cried out, he was clearly lonely, and called me over, and so I sat down with him and just started visiting with him, and then, of course, one of the sisters at the high school where I went, she was the one kind of leading the volunteer group over there. She came in and then asked me to, get some more people.
To come and volunteer?
Just to bring them down to the movie. Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then she actually told me, she said, Mark, you don't, she kind of scolded me for visiting with the person because
really
she said they're going to get attached and you're only here once a week and then you're not going to be here at all and they're going to get attached, and but I realized that was not accurate. I mean, I'm glad that I spent the time I did with that gentleman, and it was actually what I would be doing years later as a
so
chaplain.
In some ways, it's a game changer.
It was kind of a foreshadowing of my vocation, because I sat down with him and I was just present to him, and I was just listening. He was just lonely, needed to talk to someone, and so that I look back at that was kind of a foreshadowing of what I'd be doing today. And the other thing is, I realized he needed someone in that moment. It didn't matter. I mean, the sister was wrong about they're going to get attached and then you're not here. Even that one moment, someone taking the time to sit down with him in that one moment and listen,
it's like saying to him. It's like saying to a volunteer in a high school, you can't be a mentor now because you'll leave.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you can be a friend, friendships end, and you can end it by having a relationship that tolerates the end, or maybe shifts the relationship so that you can still be in touch but different ways, but you can also say goodbye in a way that is fine. Everybody goes through life changing relationships.
Exactly, and I knew I kind of knew that she was wrong when she said that, and I felt good about spending the time I did being with him, and I've learned that in my work in spiritual care, that oftentimes they are just one moment encounters. I mean, when we visit with a patient or a family, oftentimes that's the only encounter we have.
And you never know what those moments will trigger, will change. Clearly, you had that moment But then you must have had other moments that set you on your path.
Mm-hmm. And that one moment can, be very impactful for someone. I mean, I know I've had encounters that were just momentary, or met someone one time, but it impacted my life in such an incredible way. So that, but, to my point, that was like, a foreshadowing of what I would be doing later, but I didn't realize it.
Right.
Yeah. So basically just listen, being there, being present, compassionately present to someone and listening. And that's
so
what
you
I
did that,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went off and lived a different life for a while. How did you get back to that?
Yeah. So, I went off to, college, and eventually I got my bachelor's degree in psychology. And I was thinking at that time I was going to get into some sort of social service field, psychology or social work. And at the time when I was finishing up school, I was working for my family business. And
what was that?
That was a building material company. So on my mom's side, there's a family business that goes back to the 1800s, and it's still there today. My cousin runs it, and it was in Blue Island, Illinois. And I worked there from 1987 to 1995. And initially, after high school, I went off to college, to Loras College in Dubuque, Iowa. But I didn't finish up there. I left to do some volunteer work, and I ended up actually in New Mexico for a while doing some volunteer work outside the Navajo Indian Reservation, and actually worked with Mother Teresa's sisters for a while in Gallup, New Mexico, in their soup kitchen and shelter. But then I came back home, started working for the family business, and then eventually went back to finish up my degree at St. Xavier University in Chicago. And that's where I graduated in '94 with my bachelor's in psychology. And at that time, as I said, I was looking at the social service field. But then in 1995, I had a very serious accident at work. So that summer of '95, I had gotten a part-time job with my bachelor degree working for adults with developmental disabilities. I was a community support worker, and then my plan was to move into that position full-time at the end of the year. There was going to be a full-time position open, but until then I was still working full-time for the family business. And then 3 months before I was going to leave the family business, go full-time as a community support worker, I had a serious accident. So I was hit by a forklift. I was actually pinned between two forklifts, and I'll never forget the day. It was a Monday morning. It was a beautiful day, sunny sky, sunny blue sky, and it was September 18th, 1995. You just don't forget those dates.
No, you don't.
It was probably about 9:30 in the morning. I had just come back from a delivery, and I was on the side of one forklift, and another forklift had pulled up, made a turn, and struck me. And so my right leg was hanging down, so my left foot was on the step, and so I was holding on the one side of the forklift, and my right leg was hanging down. And so when this other forklift came, it just crushed my leg, pinned me, and I was pinned between the two forklifts. Had it hit me a little bit over, it would have crushed me, my organs. I would have died. So fortunately, it just caught my leg. And then, the foreman yelled at the guy on the other forklift to pull out, and he pulled out. And I remember trying to move my leg, and it wouldn't move. And I remember saying, to the foreman, I think my
leg is broken.
I think my leg is broken. Exactly. How'd you know? Exactly. I think my leg is broken because it wasn't moving. And then I looked down, and what I saw was surreal. My foot was severed off at the ankle.
Oof.
And it was actually from the ankle up. That part of my foot was over here, hanging by one tendon, but it was completely severed off except for the one tendon, and it was just hanging. And the bones beneath my leg were completely crushed. They had, broke through my skin. So beneath my knee, it was just a mess. And I remember immediately
Did you pass out?
No, I didn't. But I immediately, my imagination went to, images of, spiritually significant people and places in my life. I was actually at a good place. I was actually at a good place at that time. The year before I'd got my BA in psychology. I was, had different spiritual practices. I would go to church on Sunday, and then twice a week that summer I was practicing Buddhist meditation. On Wednesday and Sunday nights. I had met some friends who were from Thailand, and they invited me to their Buddhist temple just to visit, and then they had meditation practice for Westerners twice a week. So that whole summer I was doing that.
I bet that became a gift.
It was, because I was doing that for 3 months, and not knowing that I wouldn't be able to walk after this accident again with both my feet. I've had a prosthetic since that time, but for 3 months I actually got to practice sitting and walking meditation. And the walking meditation was wonderful because, for the first time in my life, I was actually mindfully present while I was walking. Walking slow and just, being mindful and feeling my feet touch the earth. Just completely aware of the sensation of walking, not knowing that I was going to lose my leg.
Isn't that fascinating?
3 months later, so it was a true gift. Because up till then, you get out of bed, you're running around, you don't even think about walk. We're not mindful really in our lives, and I'm running around and walking around and not even thinking about what a gift walking is. You just jump out of the bed and you go. But for that 3 months, I had to slow down and really mindfully walk and realize what a gift and joy it is just to be able to walk, to feel your feet touch the earth. And I do that twice a week there, but I would also do it, at home on my own.
Right.
So that was a gift I was grateful for.
Another sort of short foreshadowing in some ways.
It was a foreshadowing, and that's a good point. That was a foreshadowing, and then the meditation helped me at the time of the accident. So, as once I looked down, I remember looking up to the sky after I saw my leg, and I was still on the side of the forklift. My left leg was still on the step. I was holding on, but I remember looking up to the sky and just immediately, spiritually significant people and places in my life just flashed through my mind. I used to go on retreat all the time at a Trappist monastery in Iowa. I had friends who were monks there, and so all these images and places just gave me so much strength.
Right.
I remember one person I was reading a lot of them was Thich Nhat Hanh. And I just drew so much strength from that, and I knew I had to really go deep inside myself to get through this. And then I heard the foreman come around and saw my leg, and that kind of brought me back to what was happening down there, and I saw I was losing blood.
Right.
So he helped me get off the forklift and laid me on the ground, and as I was laying there, I didn't know if I was going to stop breathing or pass out, lose consciousness. I didn't know if I was going to live.
Right.
Honestly. So I said, I'm just going to follow my breath. So I just did what I learned that summer. I started meditating.
That's great.
And I thought, as long as I'm following my breath, as long as I'm aware of my breath.
As long as you're present.
Yeah, I'm present to this experience, which was important too, because when you have a trauma, the worst thing you could do is disassociate, because then you can get PTSD and things like that. So the breathing, following my breath, in and out, focusing on that, grounded me in the present, and it was very calming. The other good thing too is it's very, God was very merciful, the universe, because when we go through a traumatic accident, our body releases natural endorphins. It's like an anesthetic.
Yeah.
So anyone who's gone through a traumatic accident is relieved of, the worst possible experience, just because you do have those natural chemicals,
that
endorphins,
resilience sort of,
that your body releases. So it can be a calming effect. So the pain wasn't like excruciating. I mean, it was painful, and you
knew it was.
It was painful, and I knew it was bad, but it wasn't like I was withering around in pain, because, like I said, that your body, does this for you, releases that kind of a natural anesthetic. And so I was just following my breath. And
so interesting, the tools that you used then, that you had learned, that you, I'm sure, now use when you're working with people.
Absolutely.
You in a sense, teach people how to manage, how to cope, how to be with physical, mental, and emotional trauma.
Yeah, and the most important thing, I mean, for what we do in spiritual care is to be a calming presence.
Right.
Yeah, to be, listening is, essential. We do more listening than anything else, and just being, a calm and compassionate presence to people. Because, especially if it's a crisis, if there's a death or a trauma or a code, the patient, the family's world just been turned upside down.
Right.
So we especially as the clinical team's working with the patient, we support the family, but they're just stressed and worried and anxious. So we're just trying to be a calming presence for them, a supportive presence. We work as a liaison between the clinical team and the family.
So where do you do your work now?
So I work at Franciscan Health in Michigan City. Yeah, so I'm the manager of spiritual care there, and so I do probably half and half, 50% administrative and then 50% clinical work. Prior to, I started doing that in 2019 as the manager. Prior to that, I've been working as a chaplain in spiritual care since '99. But now I have kind of a balance between administrative and clinical. But that accident, and you would talk about a foreshadowing. So going through that accident was what led me to the work I'm doing today. 'Cause I probably would have been a psychologist or a counselor in some sort of social service field, which would have been fine, because I knew I wanted to be in a helping profession. But when I went through the accident, had that experience, and then went to the hospital. Initially, I lost my foot. They couldn't reattach that. I went through a lot of surgeries, procedures to try to save the rest of my leg. But eventually, a serious infection set in, and they had to amputate my leg below the knee. But going through that ordeal and realizing or experiencing the vulnerability of being in the hospital, going through tests and procedures and surgeries and being dependent on others, it's just such a emotionally draining and vulnerable time. And having gone through that, that's what led me to want to be there for others who were,
having that experience
or going through, suffering of their own. So really out of the accident, I found my,
your passion,
my vocation, discovered my vocation. Yeah. So.
What a gift.
Yeah.
What a gift.
And another interesting thing that came out of that too is, this kind of blew me away. So a week before, so on the Sunday, so my accident was on a Monday, and the Sunday prior, I had my first lesson on a Thai dulcimer. It's called a kim. And I play the hammer dulcimer today. It's a big part of my life. I play as a part of my work at the hospital for patients, families. I play in the BHU once a week for behavioral health patients. And then I've done a lot of recording too. But the week prior, I had gone to a Thai festival at the Buddhist temple, and there was a lot of singing and dancing, and I saw these children playing what's called a kim. It's Khim, and it's sort of the Thai version of this instrument that's very ancient, very universal. Mm-hmm. And I grew up playing percussion, and I love the percussive element of it. I love the sound of it. So I said to my friend, I said, I would love to, study this instrument. And she said, well, I have one, and I'll set up a lesson for you for next Sunday with the instructor. I'll talk to him. So he set up, she set up the lesson for me. I went back next Sunday, took the lesson. It was about a 2-hour lesson, and I loved it. And I was picking it up quickly because of my percussion background. And I was all excited. I was going to have a lesson every Sunday. And then, I went home and I was practicing and just really excited about learning this instrument. And the very next morning is when I had my accident. So all my energy and focus moved to just healing and recovering from this. And I never even thought about the instrument again.
Really?
And then, so the accident was in September. When I went home and finally got back home in December, I remember just, giving the instrument back to my friend because, just my focus was on other things now. Flash forward to 6 years later, I'm doing my chaplain residency at Tampa General Hospital in Florida. And one of our seminars we had was on music and healing, and there was a chaplain from another hospital. He came and presented on music and healing, and he played the guitar and sang at the hospital where he worked. And I knew I wanted to incorporate music into my work because during my own recovery, music was so healing for me, and it just really helped with the physical pain, the emotional pain. It was a vehicle of God's love and presence. So I knew I wanted to bring music into my work, and at that time I was doing my research project on music and healing in the cardiac intensive care unit. But I didn't know how I was going to be able to incorporate music regularly into my work until this presentation. And after he was finished, I asked the instructor what instruments work best for that process in a hospital setting. And he said, well, the harp and hammer dulcimer. and I said, well, what's a hammer dulcimer? And he described it, and I didn't make the connection right away, but as he described it, the light bulb went off. That's it. I want to learn this instrument. And the hammer dulcimer in origin goes back thousands of years to ancient times, and it's a very universal instrument. So if you Google hammer dulcimer and go to Wikipedia, it tells you the names of all of this instrument in all different cultures. So in Thailand, it's the kim. In the U.S., it's the hammer dulcimer. In Germany, it's the hackbrit. But I knew I wanted to learn the hammer dulcimer when he described it, and he happened to, how everything just kind of connects. He knew someone that played the hammer dulcimer at the hospital where he worked. Mm-hmm. And so he contacted that guy, and through this gentleman, I found an instructor in Florida. He didn't teach himself, but there was an instructor. So 2 weeks later, I had my first lesson, and I'll never forget this date either. It was Thursday, May 31st, Thursday, about 2 p.m. I had my first lesson. I drove out to the teacher's house, went into his music room, and I saw the hammer dulcimer on the stand. And it just stopped me in my tracks, because in that moment, I realized when I looked at it, it was the same instrument, same type of instrument as the Thai dulcimer I had one lesson on 6 years earlier, the day before my accident. And I just had this feeling of awe and gratitude because it was reintroduced into my life. It was reintroduced to me. And I just experienced it as a gift. And I've been playing ever since. And it was about 9 months after that, I started playing for patients and families in the hospital, 9 months after my first lesson. And so it's just that instrument is a huge part of my life, in terms of my work, and then outside my work, I, find great joy in it. And so that's another piece of the accident that was life-giving.
There you go.
Life-changing. So, yeah, so really everything I'm doing today with my work, my vocation in spiritual care and the music came out of that experience.
Amazing.
Yeah. And the other thing too was I thought that all the training, all this practice and studying I'd done playing the drums, once I had my accident, I didn't play anymore. And so when I was reintroduced to this instrument, it was like, all that playing was not for naught.
Right.
Because it helped me pick up this instrument so easily.
Nothing is for naught.
Nothing is for naught, exactly. Yeah, nothing is for naught. Everything was brought back. Everything came full circle.
And how old are you?
I'm 57.
Oh, you've just started.
Yeah, I'm 57.
You just started. It's amazing. It's going to be really interesting to see where all this goes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because I was 30 when I had the accident.
Mm-hmm.
I was 30 years old. But it is interesting how nothing's wasted.
Nothing.
In our history, no matter whatever we do, I think, as you said, nothing's for naught. It all comes kind of full circle. It all, comes back around. So I don't...
If we're aware and appreciate the gifts.
Mm-hmm.
When we are.
I think that's the main point, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
This has been a gift for me. Thank you.
It's been a gift for me to be able to share.
Good.
And I know I kind of rambled on. I hope it made sense.
It's
hard to get to.
One of the reasons I do these is because everybody has their own experiences, but you have no idea how hearing of somebody else's experience might impact your own.
That's true.
And there are so many people, just think about this last week with these children, or think about Ukraine, or think about anything. There's so much that's happening in the world that is discouraging. I think it's time that we hear some stories that are life-saving, that are a breath of fresh air, and that can be an inspiration to you to try something that is near and dear to your heart that you never tried before.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes, encouraging, life-giving stories. We need to hear more of those.
Yep.
And I hope, for me, what this, taught me is that, I believe that something life-giving can come out of anything, no matter,
no matter how horrendous.
No matter how tragic or horrendous, because there's no doubt this was a trauma for me. Going through this was a trauma, and I had to deal with a lot of emotions, grief and anger, but there was other, emotions. I had moments of gratefulness and joy, but it was just a whole mix of emotions I dealt with, and sometimes you're up and down. But it was physically, emotionally, spiritually, it was traumatic going through that. But yet I've realized myself in ways I probably never would have, or I've realized myself in new ways, and found my vocation, found this beautiful instrument, or I'd say it was a gift, as you said, and all that has brought so much joy to my life. Meaning, my vocation provides meaning, the music provides so much joy, so much, new life came out of that, I truly believe that, out of suffering, out of tragedy can come new life, resurrection.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mark Grobner.
You're welcome.
This has been delightful.
You're
Creating
welcome.
from the heart, the artistry of living. See you next time.